this morning I have Eric Howell with me, and I'm very excited. Last night we had a great screening of Eric's film Anna's Playground in Calgary. So how are you feeling, Eric? What happened last night?
I feel fantastic. This was a great experience. It was my first experience to share the film with an audience, and I got to share it with my entire producing team, and we were so thrilled. The Calgary Film Festival team was so welcoming, and the audience was so welcoming. It's a perfect beginning to our, hopefully, what becomes a world tour for the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in the audience, and everyone we were engaged, and I was hooked, right? And so to first of all talk a little bit about the film. Now I've seen the whole film, and I know what it's, and I don't want to spoil it for other viewers. But how did you Did you conceive the ending in that way already in the beginning, or how
Yes,
tell me the process?
Absolutely. And when I write, I have to know my ending before I even begin the story. I may have an idea for a plot, but I have to know the ending first. And in this particular case, I wanted to tell a story where we played with empathy, and what happens with your empathy for a protagonist, and how that is shaped, and how that can be looked at or examined, and that was specifically where I started with the story, was examining that relationship of the protagonist and the antagonist, and how an audience responds to those two, and exploring the gray area between the protagonist and the antagonist.
Mm-hmm. And the way the story ends, it certainly kind of bring it. You didn't what's the word? You didn't chicken out, sidestep the important issues, or give us one way or another. It is the kind of serious matter that we were dealing with on the topic of child soldier. So in the Q&A session, what are some of one of the very typical questions that you guys got asked a lot and by people, and what was one that you wish someone would have asked and didn't get asked last night?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I will say that I tend to ramble when it comes to talking about the film. So I could have stood up there and talked about everything that went into the making of the film. So that is just the true excitement I have for filmmaking, and for the process, and for the people that are involved in doing it. I think it's not that the questions weren't asked. I think it was probably that always open, but I like exploring the issue of the main character. What was her intention in the ending? And I think that you know what I mean by, she turns around in that film towards the antagonist. And without giving away any of the ending, but I like to have discussion about what that means, because I think there isn't a clean answer, and what I like about the ending is that it leaves you. There's a little bit of decisive ambiguity, if you know what I mean. It forces a conversation, and I don't think last night we had the venue or the time to get into that conversation. But that's what I hope to elicit with the ending of the film, is a conversation about how war affects the humanity of a child.
Right, and I certainly think and agree with you that the audience, when they leave the theater, that may be one of the questions that they have linger in their mind next time the topic of child soldier come up in the news or in another discussion. But now we are outside of the dark theater, and let us probe some of those questions now. And in this discussion, I guess we can wear our hats as, for me, I'm a Canadian citizen and you are American. So I don't know if you're probably aware that Calgary is the city of our Prime Minister. In fact, the Prime Minister Harper, Canada's leader, is my member of Parliament. So, and there is one case where we have, without, I guess, we can name names, but we don't need to. I mean, there's only one child soldier that is still stuck in the U.S. Guantanamo Bay
Yep.
military prison. And your President Obama, even though however popular he is in the States and in Canada, he hasn't done anything with respect to this child soldier. And the very, very sad part for me as a Canadian is my prime minister my government hasn't done anything to try to repatriate this child soldier. So now, I've got the paradox, the box open. What's your thought on challenging like situation like that? There's no clean solution, I think.
There really isn't, and I think what you've just outlined is the difference between you and I, not as American and Canadian,
Mm-hmm.
but as filmmaker and journalist.
Mm-hmm.
And as a journalist, for right or wrong, good or bad, sometimes your job is to report and to editorialize, backorialize. And my job is maybe a little bit easier, and sometimes more difficult, is to explore and ask the questions. And if I've done my job right, I haven't necessarily answered the question. I've left the question for the audience to explore and hopefully provoked conversation. And where I stand about the issue is very clear in the film. And it's about the issue of the humanity of a child and the world's response to the issue of war-affected children, not just child soldiers, but children affected by war and the psychological effects of war. And so I guess my response to you is that if I'm doing my job right, what I've done is I've created the conversation. And in this instance, I've created the conversation about this specific issue with you as a Canadian, as somebody from Calgary, who now is going to write maybe or expand the dialogue about the issue of war-affected children. So what that says to me is that hopefully I've done my job as a filmmaker and shown my opinions and shown my thoughts up on the screen. Now it's almost like handing off the baton. I hand off the baton to the audience to move forward and continue the dialogue and to continue actions needed to address the issue of war-affected children.